President, the officials of the Council of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, distinguished invitees and the orator. Let me now invite the following dignitaries to light the oil lamp. The orator in today's evening, Dr. Bigumar Jayasundara.
Of remembering that gesture, that this ceremonial event and this day has been incorporated several years ago. Actually, my thoughts go back many years when I was a relatively young council member with the college based at the SLMA building. Then one day I got a call that there was going to be an emergency council meeting. And I joined this meeting at that small room with few council members sitting around that, as I recall, a square table, and Mr. Ananda seated at the computer, which was what we used to call a 486 computer at that time. When Professor Sheriffdeen addressed us with that we had a big task to do, and this was to actually draft some documents. Though I am speaking to you now, on that day my role was simply listening because I was the youngest in the council. And important documents were done and important decisions were made. So it is with a lot of hard work and much thought that has gone during that time that this property came into the ownership of the college. So I think we should always remember this part of history, that we are so grateful that we have the privilege of using these premises and all that goes with it. And this year, the decision to come to this premises was magnified, that we had our college academic congress based at these premises due to the lockdown, and not only our college, 4 other professional bodies used these premises to have their scientific sessions. So ladies and gentlemen, the first part of today's program is the presentation of honorary fellowships. After careful examination of the contribution made by 2 very eminent gentlemen, they would be presented with the highest honor the college can award, the honorary fellowship of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. And in the next part of the program, the college members, by virtue of their services rendered to the college and the society, have earned the honor of being awarded the college fellowship. This year, a detailed selection criteria were introduced and the awardees were screened through this process. And I congratulate the fellowship awardees in advance. There are many people who should be thanked for getting this event together, and Dr. Gayan Eganayakar, the Honorary Secretary of the College, will present a vote of thanks later in the program. And of course, by logic, Gayan will not thank himself, and it is my duty to thank Gayan for all the hard work that you always do and keep all the proceedings in order. And I conclude with a very pleasant task of wishing Dr. Satish Gunasinghe many happy returns. He is, as you know, the college vice president. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir. The next event in the lineup is the awarding of the honorary fellowships. This year, the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka will be awarding 2 honorary fellowships to Sri Lankan surgeons. The first of which will be awarded to Dr. Nisanka Jayawardena, Consultant General Surgeon and immediate past President of College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. The citation will be read by Professor Srinath Chandrasekara, the President-elect of College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. Over to you, sir.
Past presidents of the college, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I thank the council, and in particular, for bestowing the honor of reading the citation for Nisanka Jayawardena, the immediate past president of the college, who is also my very good and close friend. Metlage Nisanka Sriman Jayawardena, who hails from Colombo, was educated at the Royal College, Colombo, and later went on to pursue his medical studies at the North Colombo Medical College in Ragavan. I am sure many of you know the challenging circumstances, the personal circumstances following road traffic accidents, which did not deter him from swaying from the ambition of becoming a doctor and later a surgeon. And despite such challenges, Nisanka stayed on course to graduate with honors from the North Colombo Medical College and soon embarked on a postgraduate career in surgery, once again coming out of it with excellent performance. Nisanka chose to take up general surgery as his specialty and took up breast and oncoplastic surgery as his special area of interest. Nisanka was first appointed to the Council of the College of Surgeons in Sri Lanka in 2012. Since then, he has been a regular and a persistent contributor to various activities of the college and held office until he became president of the college in the year 2019. Dr. Jayawardena has been involved in many educational and activities involving professional development of doctors and surgeons in general. And just to highlight a few from this long list, he has been one of the most popular teachers in undergraduate surgery, both in peripheral hospitals, where some of the medical students have come to do their appointments, as well as the National Hospital of Sri Lanka, where he was appointed as a consultant surgeon in the year 2018. He is also a much sought after postgraduate trainer, and his slots have never been kept vacant. There have been a lot of competition from students or graduates of the higher order of the merit list to seek appointments for training in his unit, both for registrar as well as post-doctor, post-MD training. He has been an examiner at almost all the medical schools for undergraduate MBBS in the subject of surgery, and also has been an examiner at the MD surgery examination for over a decade. Nisanka has also been appointed as an examiner in ENT and other associated fields or related fields of surgery at the Postgraduate Institute, and was also appointed as an examiner of the International MRCS examination held by the Royal Colleges of Surgeons. Nisanka has been a very active member of the faculty of the National Trauma Management course and has made immense contributions to the development of this course. He has been a member of the Board of Study in Surgery, the Specialty Board of Surgery, and has been once again actively involved in developing curriculum and course content for postgraduate surgery on behalf of the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine in Colombo. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, Nisanka's tenure as a president of the College of Surgeons has been a trailblazing one. I do not wish to elaborate on that because we are all, as council members and surgeons, well aware of the immense contributions he made to the college and the surgical profession in general during his tenure as president of the college. I won't be wrong to say that the highlight of activities during his year as president was his decision to take the annual Congress to Gaul, and I think that was an immensely successful event and one of the most successful surgical congresses held out of Colombo in the history of the college. Nisanka is ably supported by his wife Anusha, who is also a doctor, and Manuka, his son, and Savindya, his daughter, who is also a doctor by profession. Mr. President, members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, it is my greatest honor to recommend Dr. Nisanka Jayawardena, immediate past President of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, for the title of Honorary Fellow of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. Nisanka, may I invite you to come on stage to receive your fellowship.
He obtained the fellowship of the Royal College of Surgeons of England in 1994, and Dr. Ratnasena was board certified as a specialist in general surgery in April 1993. Dr. Ratnasena considers his internship under Professor Arjuna Alvihari at the University Surgical Unit Peradeniya as the point where he got the inspiration to embark on a career of surgery. On appointment as a consultant general surgeon, he initially served surgical patients in the provinces at base and provincial hospitals with utmost dedication. And he also took extra efforts to develop and enhance the quality of services wherever he served. His dedication to serve patients in the provinces is a glowing example to young surgeons of today who want to serve in the towns and the city. I still remember how Dr. Ratnasena worked hard to optimize surgical services at the provincial hospital Kurunegala, where I was the newly appointed urologist. He worked hard to expand operating lists, to make them full-day operating lists, and he was always present at the operating theatre at all times, attending to casualty patients. And he was an example to trainees and junior doctors at all times. And he has held leadership in surgery and the medical profession as a whole, and the specialty in particular in different situations. He has served our college with commitment, and he has been a council member of the College of Surgeons from 2000 until 2012. And he served as the vice president of the college in the years 2013 and 2014 before he prematurely opted out of the higher positions of the college. Although he should have been an excellent leader of Sri Lankan surgery as the president of our college, it was a loss to us. Dr. Ratnasena was the president of the Association of General Surgeons from 2013 to 2016 and the chairman of the Board of Study in General Surgery from 2013 to 2015. He led medical officers in the government service in two vital positions. He was the president of the GMOA, the Government Medical Officers Association, in the years 2005 to 2006, and he was also the president of the Association of Medical Specialists of the AMS from 2015 to 2017. He held this difficult and challenging post with a high level of integrity and professionalism. That is one thing we should really appreciate. He also has been a committed undergraduate and postgraduate teacher He has been a regular contributor to bedside teaching during surgical appointments of medical students throughout the country. He has trained many surgical registrars and senior registrars and was a highly sought after postgraduate trainer during his career. The base hospital Chilla was recognized as a center for general surgical training at senior registrar level as early as 2002. Dr. Atlasen has published widely on thyroid, hepatobiliary and colorectal disorders and has encouraged his trainees to do research and publish as well. His scientific work earned him the President's Award for Scientific Publication in 2014. Hepatobiliary surgery was his special interest. He pioneered laparoscopic common bile duct exploration in Sri Lanka, and this experience was presented at the International Hepatopancreatic Biliary Association and also at the College of Surgeons annual sessions in Kandy 2017, where he was awarded the prestigious Bartholomeusz Award. He always prides himself in having been a provincial surgeon and wishes this award to be a tribute made to a surgeon who worked in the so-called periphery. I don't think it's a misnomer anymore. We have developed regional centers all over the country now. He worked tirelessly and diligently in the provinces, and he worked at a level of excellence on par with the tertiary center in the provincial hospitals. For example, he performed a liver resection 18 years ago at Base Hospital, Chilla. President, distinguished past presidents, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, now I present to you Dr. B.G.N. Ratnasena, MBBS Perania, MS Colombo, FRCS England, an eminent and dedicated surgeon, dedicated surgical mentor, and a surgical leader for the Honorary Fellowship of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. I invite Dr. Ratnasena to come on to the stage.
Dr. Dimuthu Prishantha Tennapu, Consultant Orthopedic Surgeon at College Fellowships.
Undergraduate training at University of Jayawardenepura from 1998, and he then did his internship at National Hospital after completing his medical undergraduate career with the second class upper, and he then selected to become a surgeon, and he went through his training started in 2005 and went into orthopedics, and he has done several clinical fellowships and in Singapore in spine and sports medicine, and also he's one of the keen surgeons who have taken up pediatric orthopedic surgery, and he has done a course in advanced training on Ponseti method of treating clubfoot in USA, and he was board certified as an orthopedic surgeon in 2008, and he bears membership for several prestigious organizations both locally and internationally, and he is now the pediatric orthopedic surgeon attached to Lady Ridgeway Hospital, and he has worked at Negombo District General Hospital and North Colombo Teaching Hospital, and also Teaching Hospital Kurunegala, where I met him and had the privilege of working with him. I saw a blossoming genius at work, and I was often quoting my trainees to see a real orthopedic surgeon at work. And ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, he's a very, very good at what he does. And he has been, since then, he has worked at District General Hospital, Kampala, and he has had numerous publications to his credit. And ladies and gentlemen, I take great pleasure in recommending Dr. Dimuthu Tennapu for the award of the Fellowship of the College of Surgeons. Dr. Dimuthu Tennapu, please.
He decided decided to do surgery and got through his Masters of Surgery examination in 2001 and proceeded to the United Kingdom and was trained in Princess Royal Hospital, Farnborough, with special interest in colorectal surgery and breast surgery. Having returned to Sri Lanka in 2003, he joined the prestigious Colombo Medical Faculty, the Department of Anatomy, where he still functions as and ascended to the status of professor in anatomy recently. Currently, he is the chairperson in the Board of Study in Basic Medical Sciences in the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine. Previously, he held many leading posts in the academic bodies and was instrumental in developing several medical curriculum projects as well as examination protocols, and a keen teacher of undergraduate and as well as both postgraduates. In the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, he has held many posts as an examiner, in addition to being in surgical field in anatomy. He had been an examiner in obstetrics and gynecology, orthodontic, oral and facial maxillary surgery, and dentistry. And he is also a member of the panel of examinations of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. And he has been a resource person in many postgraduate courses conducted by the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine. His research publications include many papers published in prestigious international journals. He has been a resource person in many academic events in both international forum as well as in Sri Lanka. And he is a reviewer of several prestigious journals, which include Sri Lanka Journal of Surgery, Journal of Clinical Anatomy, and Austin Medical Journal. In addition to being a surgeon, he is a musician and he is a vocalist in Ceylon Broadcasting Corporation, and he has an album in his name. And of course, he was awarded Sumati Telecine Drama Award once for the medical education teledrama series that he developed. And I would like to invite him to the stage to receive his award. Mr. President and the Council award of the Fellowship of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka.
Dr. Mohan Udeshanta Dias.
As a consultant surgeon at Base Hospital Rittilagaskada, Base Hospital Kantale, District General Hospital Nawalapitiya, and culminating in his post as consultant resident surgeon at National Hospital Kandy. As a leader and as a surgeon, Dr. Dias has in no small measure contributed to the development of services offered at each of the stations he has served in. Having been the first surgeon at Base Hospital Rittilagaskada, he was instrumental in setting up and developing a fully functional surgical unit at the hospital. The initiation of laparoscopic surgical services at Base Hospital Kantale is another feather in his cap. Though appointed as resident surgeon at National Hospital Kandy, he did not confine himself to tertiary care and initiated outreach surgical clinic services at Apurana, Teldenia, Rehabilitation Hospital Digana, and Police Hospital Kundasale, all hospitals which are within the Greater Kandy area. Dr. Mohan Dias is well known as someone who takes great pains to teach medical students and surgical trainees alike in his quiet and understated way. While being an active member of the extended faculty for surgical teaching at the University of Peradeniya, he serves as an undergraduate examiner at the Universities of Peradeniya, Kalaniya, and Rajarata, as well as for the ERPM examination. He is also an examiner for the selection examination for MD surgery with BJM at the University of Colombo. He also serves as a trainer for the basic surgical course at Peradeniya, and he has been selected as a trainer for the ATLS and NTMC programs conducted by the college. He has also contributed as an instructor for the Cambridge Anastomosis workshop. In the academic sphere, he is an active member of the panel of reviewers for the Sri Lanka Journal of Surgery as well as for the Sri Lanka Journal of Medicine. Dr. Dias serves outside the clinical and academic spheres as an active member of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, having served on its council and subcommittees in 2017 and 2018. He is a member of the editorial panel of the Sutra, the official newsletter of the college, and he has been and continues to be the secretary of the central chapter of the college as well as a council member of the Association of General Surgeons of Sri Lanka since 2014. His alma mater and hometown of Kandy owe much to his untiring efforts as Assistant Secretary of the Peradeniya Medical School Alumni Association and as the Secretary of the Kandy Society of Medicine. He has organized numerous surgical educational and training programs on behalf of the College of Surgeons and its chapters for undergraduate and postgraduates in the various positions that he has held. Mr. President and the Council, I believe this account shines a light on a multifaceted surgeon committed to his craft, patients, students, community and colleagues. In recognition of his contribution rendered to the surgical fraternity and services of this country, I take great pleasure in recommending Dr. Mohan Deshant Dias for the award of the fellowship of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. Dr. Mohan Dias is unable to be here today as he is overseas, and I would like to ask Dr. Vinuma Jayasundara to accept the fellowship on his behalf.
Thank you very much, sir. The fourth and final recipient of the prestigious fellowship for the year 2020 will be Dr. Sumit Priyankara Premaratna, Consultant General Surgeon of Base Hospital Balapitiya. He is a member of the college since the year 2010. May I now invite Dr. Mihira Bandara, Consultant General Surgeon at North Colombo Teaching Hospital, to read the citation.
Mr. President, the Council and distinguished guests, I take great pleasure in introducing Dr. Gankande Kamkanamalage Sumit Priyankara Premaratna, Consultant General Surgeon, Base Hospital, Balapitiya. Dr. Premaratna received his primary education from Royal College, Colombo, and entered the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo in 1993. After obtaining MBBS in 1998, he finished his internship at the National Hospital of Sri Lanka in year 2000. After serving as a medical officer at the Base Hospital Balapitiya, he was enrolled into the postgraduate surgical training in surgery in 2005 and was awarded MS degree in surgery in 2009. And subsequently, he was trained as a senior registrar in general surgery at the North Colombo Teaching Hospital, Ragama, and he received his overseas training at the Canberra Hospital, Australia, which is the largest teaching hospital affiliated to Australian National University in Australian Capital Territory. Upon return to Sri Lanka, he started practice as a board-certified consultant general surgeon. He worked in many stations. He worked as a resident surgeon at the North Colombo Teaching Hospital. After that, he worked Base Hospital Karawanella, Kahavatta, and currently he is working at the Base Hospital Balapitiya. He continued to involve annual academic events of College of Surgeons and the various academic activities conducted by the various colleges at the Sabaragamuwa province, and also he was involved in various international academic sessions. He is very much interested in teaching undergraduates while he was in North Colombo Teaching Hospital, and currently he is supervising surgical training of surgical registrars at Balapitiya Base Hospital. He have done several projects to upgrade infrastructure facilities, human resources at the stations previously he worked, and some of his activities are still ongoing at the current station. He is capable and very skilled on performing wide range of surgical operations and laparoscopic surgeries. He has a special interest in laparoscopic and lower gastrointestinal surgeries. Dr. Premaratne, he is very good friend of mine. I recognized him during my training as a registrar. I really appreciate his qualities, being kind and humble in whatever the activities he is involved. Mr. President, Council, in recognition of the contribution rendered to the surgical fraternity and services of this country, I take the great pleasure in recommending Dr. Gankande Kankanmalage Sumit Priyankara Premaratne for the award of Fellowship of College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka.
The Sri Lanka Surgical Congress 2020. I would like to cordially invite Dr. Jayendra Fernando, the President of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, to give away the prizes for the following recipients. Dr. Bartholomeusz Prize for the Best Oral Presentation by a Surgical Trainee. For the presentation titled Knowledge on Suturing of Facial Lacerations Among General Surgical Senior House Officers would be awarded to Dr. W.R.P. Dialvis. Dr. S.A. Edirveera Award for the Best Paper on Trauma for the paper entitled Knowledge on Suturing of Facial Lacerations Among General Surgical Senior House Officers also goes to Dr. W.R.P. Dialvis. The Best Paper on Hepatopancreatobiliary Surgery for the study titled Changing Pattern of Iatrogenic Bile Duct Injuries, Are We More Careful? Is awarded to Dr. P.K.B.S.C. Bandar. The Best Provincial Paper, that is the best paper from a regional unit, by Dr. YWPP Ratnayaka. May I now call upon Professor Mohan De Silva, Emeritus Professor of Surgery and former Dean of Faculty of Medical Sciences, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, to read the citation for Dr. Biguman Jayasundar. Over to you, sir.
Was the only son of late Mr. Nihal Jayasundar from Udenia, a village in the southern province, and Hemapali Jayasundar from Matale. Biguman had his primary education at the Asoka Vidyalaya till grade 5, and after winning the grade 5 scholarship, he went to Royal College Colombo, and he entered the Faculty of Medical Sciences of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura in 1999. It is during this period that I came to know of this exceptionally gifted young man who I recognized as a brilliant student with all the other credentials to be a future surgeon. He passed out in the year 2005, obtaining second class upper division honors, and as expected, with a distinction in surgery. He also obtained distinctions in medicine, pathology, microbiology, and parasitology, and was placed second in the faculty merit list. Soon he entered the postgraduate surgical training program of the College of Surgeons of the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine of Sri Lanka, winning the Dr. P.R. Anthony's Gold Medal for Basic Sciences in Surgery by obtaining the highest marks at the MD Surgery Part 1 examination. He obtained MD Surgery in the year 2012 and the membership of the Royal College of Surgeons of England, that is MRCS, in 2011. Eventually, he was board certified in general surgery with a special interest in coloproctology in the year 2015. Bigumal is currently the Consultant General Surgeon at the District General Hospital in Oration, having served in Mana and at Colombo South Teaching Hospital as a consultant in the accident service, and as a military surgeon at the UN mission in South Sudan as a Lieutenant Colonel in Sri Lanka. Bigumal is also a recipient of the International Bursary Award of the Association of Surgeons of Great Britain and Ireland in 2011. And he also won the award for the best outstation paper at the International Annual Academic Sessions of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka in 2017. Bigumal has already got first author original publications in highly reputed, high-indexed international journals such as the Annals of the Royal College of Surgeons of England, the Surgeon, which is the official journal of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh and Ireland, Hepatobiliary and Pancreatic Diseases International, Asia Pacific Journal of Tropical Medicine, and Singapore Medical Journal. A rare feat by no means for a busy base hospital surgeon in Sri Lanka. In fact, I cannot think of any other non-university surgeon in the past who has achieved this task by the age 42. He has also published in Indian Journal of Surgery, Sri Lanka Journal of Surgery, Ceylon Medical Journal, and in the Journal of Medical Case Reports, a total of 17 quality research publications. This reminds me of a comment made by Professor Datta, OBE, a long-time surgical tutor of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, when he came to conduct the Edinburgh Basic Sciences training program for MRCS candidates of the Asia Pacific region, which was held at the Colombo South Teaching Hospital, which Bigumal attended. I think he was then the registrar at the University Surgical Unit at the Colombo South Teaching Hospital. Mr. Datta is a globally acclaimed surgical teacher with a keen eye for talent. Datta was also well known in UK and in the Indo-Pacific region among surgical trainees for his unique style of teaching, continually questioning trainees during his tutorials. Having observed how this young trainee handled all his questions, he made a comment about Bigumal. He said, "Mohan, that young man is heading for a bright surgical future. As a trainer, I have absolutely no hesitation in saying that Bigumal Jayasundar is one of the trainees I used to highly admire for his hard work, for his dedication, for his empathic approach, and his total commitment to the care of his patients. His thirst to learn, to stay updated with knowledge, and to progress was very apparent when I noted that with his busy clinical practice and with all his on-call commitments, he has found time to attend 54 courses and seminars. Bigumal, as I see, is a unique surgeon with many other diverse interests and talents. Of all sports, young Bigumal's interest was with the baseball. In fact, he played for the Royal Baseball team and he was a vice captain of the baseball team. He was a presidential scout when he left Royal, a task not easy to achieve. He still has an interest in this area. Very few surgeons are involved in professional development and training, including outbound physical training. And he was one, at one stage coming to the level of a trainer. Bigumal is a keen wildlife photography, enjoys hiking, excellent in calligraphy, and an enthusiastic collector of old stamps and coins. His poetry is a treat to read. What a contrasting interest. So I was not surprised at all, actually, when a few years ago someone mentioned to me in a lighter way that Bigumal is fighting in South Sudan. I think there are not very many Bigumals in the world. To look after such a unique personality must be a Herculean task. And that has fallen on the shoulders of his lovely wife, Nivanti, who's here, the medical officer at the Crown South Teaching Hospital in the Department of Pathology. And very soon, this challenging responsibility is going to fall on their two beautiful daughters, who are again here, Parani and Nilupuri. I'm sure three of them together will somehow handle this mammoth task very well. It is said that art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. I'm sure that all his past teachers will agree with me that we were at one time very fortunate to have discovered this multi-talented young man. And I can see that he has commitment and perseverance to reach all his dreams. And I have no doubt that he will reach that destination. We wish him well. Mr. President, members of the Council, it is my great pleasure to propose Jasin Arachike Saman Binguma Jayasundar, Consultant General Surgeon, to be the Noel and Nora.
Members, surgeons and trained surgeons from all around the island, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to every one of you who have gathered here today at the Noel and Nora Bartholomeusz Center of Auditorium, and to everyone joining online. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to deliver prestigious Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz Memorial Oration for the year 2020 for the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz was an eminent surgeon of yesteryear with compassion, principle, and humanity, whose contribution was immense to the streamlined general surgical service in Ceylon during the post-World War II era. Noel was born on the Christmas Day of 1910 as the second child of Hugh Hamilton Bartholomeusz and Alice Maud Jans. His father was an advocate at the Supreme Court, Colombo. Noel had two brothers and two sisters. Young Bartholomeusz completed his Following successful completion of that course, he was admitted to Colombo Medical College, and in 1935 he accomplished a basic medical degree in high note, topping his batch. Noel married to Nora Bevan, a theatre nurse who loved to assist him during his surgery in 1936, and they were beloved life partners for the next 4 decades. After qualifying, young Dr. Bartholomeusz served as a medical officer in Noel, Badulla, and Avisavela. Even prior to his specialty training, this young general surgeon transformed the small district hospital of Avisavela into a heaven for surgery, single-handedly. At the end of the Second World War, Dr. Bartholomeusz, with his contemporaries like Dr. P.R. Antonis and Dr. L.D.C. Oste, won the government scholarships to be specially trained in surgery in UK. Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz completed his FRCS within 2 years and returned to Sri Lanka in 1949 to be appointed as a consultant surgeon at the General Hospital, Colombo, the post that he held till 1969 until his retirement. He worked around the clock in both public and private sector to save many lives in a setting with limited antibiotics, primitive anesthetic facilities, no ventilators, no critical care, or not even blood products. He was an old generation general surgeon who was managing entire range of abdominal pathologies, urology, orthopedics in both elective and emergency settings. The latter part of Dr. Bartholomeusz's life was not very pleasant as a result of the renal impairment he developed, which required frequent dialysis. In that pre-PPI era, his peptic ulcer frequently bled following dialysis. Despite all such negativities hindering his well-being, this courageous surgeon continued to serve his poor patients. Surgery was not the only interest in Dr. Bartholomeusz's life. He had a passion for fine arts, theatre, and classical music. He was fond of collecting antiques, nurturing pet animals, and fishing. His love for orchids, of course, was fabulous. This legendary surgeon, a soft-spoken, kind-hearted gentleman, passed away 1 month earlier to his 67th birthday in 1977. Mrs. Nora Bartholomeusz, the widow of Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz, expired in 2003. Few months prior to her demise, this gracious, dignified lady gifted their extremely valuable, almost priceless house placed in the heart of the Colombo 7 with the College of Surgeons. It is there that we have gathered here today. In memory of this eminent surgeon, the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka introduced Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz Oration, and Professor H. Redden delivered the inaugural oration in 2013. It's my greatest pleasure and pride to address you for the 8th Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz Memorial Oration today. Over the past few years, general surgeons in Sri Lanka have been discussing various aspects of trauma care in Sri Lanka. In 2019 alone, Dr. Ranjit Lawala delivered the Bartholomeusz Oration on the nightmare of accidents and emergency major trauma, the fight to save many lives. And Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Amir Ratnayake delivered the R. Hospital Oration on Sri Lanka combat extremity vascular injury experiences. As a relatively junior specialist general surgeon working in the periphery of the country, Dr. Satish Kumar Singh may not be very happy with me taking that term, periphery of the country again, with relatively limited facilities compared to the main centers. Here I am attempting to discuss the concerns faced by the general surgeons during in-hospital trauma care in Sri Lanka and issues identified in overall injury prevention, mainly focusing on road crash-related injuries. I will talk on the non-resolving challenges affecting trauma care and injury prevention in Sri Lanka, concerns beyond clinical boundaries, as reflections of general surgery. Injuries happening as a result of trauma is now identified as a disease, which creates a massive public health concern. Such disease carries a major toll on health economics, even with developed world. Care of a severely injured victim spans over pre-hospital care, emergency room resuscitation, surgical interventions and critical care, subsequent in-hospital care, and post-hospital rehabilitation. Due to the time-critical nature of this disease, each and every minute counts following the incident of severe injury. Thus, the management of critically injured patient requires specialized escalation sequence of care to achieve optimal outcomes. This is the foremost reason to establish trauma systems in the developed world by evolving central and regional trauma centers depending on the population size, transportation efficacy, and many other complex factors. World Health Organization estimates unintentional injuries to cause 3.4 million deaths a year, to account for 6% of the total global mortalities. Out of this, 1.4 million deaths happen as a result of road crashes, earning it the 8th position on the list of cause-specific global mortalities. Almost 2/3 of fatalities occur in countries with low income or low middle income economies. Direct and indirect burden caused by trauma-related injuries pile up on health economics. Thus, according to the current available evidence, trauma education and trauma prevention are considered as equally important aspects of holistic trauma care, in addition to provision of individual patient care once the injury happens. As vast majority of trauma and injury-related mortalities and morbidities happen in low and low middle income countries, potentially achievable relative and absolute economic advantages through costs saved by injury prevention are maximum in them. Sri Lanka is a third world developing country bearing a low middle income economy with per capita GDP of about $4,000. We utilize 3% of gross GDP for health expenditure. However, all of us know that we have a well-established state-driven free healthcare system with average health indices comparable with the developed world despite the limited healthcare budgets. It is not disputed to say that the wide majority of the major trauma care in Sri Lanka is completed in the government sector hospitals. Ministry of Health remains as the main service provider in trauma care, employing majority of medical, nursing and paramedical professionals. Statistics available in the latest available annual health bulletin by the Ministry of Health confirms the burden that traumatic injuries have vested on Sri Lankan healthcare system. Traumatic injury as a disease has been the commonest reason for hospital admissions, accounting for 1/5 of total admissions. Such injuries have earned the 10th position in the cause-specific in-hospital mortalities in Sri Lanka. Within the ministry structure, hierarchy of institutional care escalates from primary medical care units to teaching hospitals and national hospitals. And each level of hospital, it is expected to provide an acceptable level of trauma care. We know that the specialist general surgeons are placed on duty in institutions in caliber of type B hospitals and above. Management of a critically injured patient is a teamwork. And adequate human resources with adequate training is a must to achieve the optimal end results. In an ideal setting, pre-hospital ambulance staff, emergency medical specialists and teams, general surgical trauma specialists and teams, specialists in other surgical finer specialties like orthopedics, neurosurgery, vascular, plastic, cardiothoracic and urology and their teams, anesthetic and critical care specialists and their teams, nursing staff, physiotherapists, and all other paramedical staffs of concern need to work hand in hand to achieve this common goal. Sri Lanka lacks level 1 trauma care centers that provide 24/7 dedicated emergency trauma cover except for the National Hospital of Sri Lanka. The ground level truth in trauma care within the Sri Lankan poorly planned health structure is that most of the occasions, the available general surgical specialists are left responsible to lead the in-hospital trauma care with or many times without even the assistance of a specialist anesthetist or an intensivist. Further, actions taken for injury prevention in Sri Lanka by legislation or public education appears to be inadequate. In such complex background, I am trying to broadly discuss the challenging concerns of trauma care and injury prevention in automobile and industrial domains in Sri Lanka from the point of view of a general surgeon working in the periphery of the country. The main objectives are, firstly, to review the literature on automobile and industrial trauma management and prevention in Sri Lanka. Then to describe and correlate the potential efficacy of the recently enhanced motor vehicle safety regulations in injury prevention using data from the second trauma care center in Sri Lanka, that is from Colombo South. Thirdly, an attempt is made to describe the human resource availability for specialized trauma care management within the ministry structure and to study the general surgeon's perception on level of satisfaction on the trauma care they provide. History is what that guides us for the future. Unfortunately, we don't have much data in our in-hospital trauma management outcomes. We have extremely limited publications on trauma care, on civilian trauma care mainly, on outcome studies from the surgical point of view. I would count 6 publications since 1968. Additionally, there were a couple of publications on forensic trauma injury descriptions. There were a few studies describing the epidemiological aspects of roadside trauma. I found only 2 publications on cross-sectional studies about industrial and agricultural injuries in Sri Lanka. There were no risk analyses on clinical outcomes and no health economic evaluations on the burden of civilian trauma. We don't have a trauma registry. We don't have a method to retrieve patient-reported outcomes following management of major trauma. In the absence of outcome data, we don't have accountability on the quality improvement. I'm not sure whether we don't know that we don't know. During a short career, I have the experience of serving as a specialist general surgeon in a couple of least popular district general hospitals, Manna and Noel. And in 2018, I did function as a trauma surgeon at the second dedicated trauma facility in Colombo South, manned by again an inadequate number of designated general surgeons. Most recently, I served as a general surgeon in a military setting for a year and a half in a UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan. Thus, I have personally experienced the lapses we face and encounter as a general surgeon during trauma care in varied settings, especially in so-called peripheries of the country. Over the last decade, there is a reduction of surgical trainees taking up general surgery as a career. Despite the introduction of special interest domain within general surgery, trainees and junior surgeons were not in the belief that they could practice such interest area in elective settings. Although trauma surgery has been identified as a special interest domain, it has become the least popular choice among the limited number of trainees taking up general surgery. Overburdening work due to lack of supportive specialists have been stated as one of the reasons. There's a trend of qualifying general surgeons leaving the Ministry of Health to universities, private sector, and foreign employment. Over the past few years, general surgeons have raised this as a concern to relevant stakeholders with minimal positive responses. These personal experiences led myself firstly to study the selective segment of trauma care related to automobile injuries at a tertiary care trauma facility, and secondly to study the general surgeon's perception on the overall trauma care in Sri Lanka and their level of job satisfaction in view to find suggestions for a complex problem. This is the first study where we describe it as a hospital-based case series analysis of road traffic trauma patients of Sri Lanka, audit from the Colombo South. According to WHO data, road traffic trauma injuries resulted in more than 1.4 million estimated deaths. Again, I repeat that. That is comparable with the deaths resulted from the current COVID-19 pandemic. Global distribution of such injuries or such deaths was heterogeneous, and average rate for such fatalities was 8.3 per 100,000 population in high-income countries. This value raised 3 times in low-income countries like us. WHO estimated Sri Lanka to have 3,600 automobile trauma deaths in 2016, which was 2.5% of all post-specific deaths in the country. Additionally, WHO has identified pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, and three-wheel occupants as vulnerable road users, and states such risk group to account for more than 80% of all road traffic trauma deaths in Southeast Asia. Sri Lankan government recently, that was in 2017, implemented a new legislation to prohibit the importation of motor vehicles without seat belts, airbags, and ABS as a measure of improved vehicle safety. Despite this development being a forward move towards reaching the global best practices in vehicle safety, such regulations would have a minimal impact on the safety of the pedestrians, pedal or motorcyclists, and three-wheeler passengers, which comprise a large proportion of Sri Lankan road traffic trauma casualty mass. In such background, we performed a descriptive road traffic trauma case series analysis at Accident Service Colombo South, the second largest trauma center in Colombo. The objectives were to describe the demographics of the patients, to identify the human risk factors associated with these accidents, to review the management outcomes of road traffic trauma victims in order to correlate the potential efficacy of new vehicle regulation legislation on prevention or reduction of such injury causation. In this prospective observational study, data of all road traffic trauma victims, irrespective of the injury severity, were collected for 2 months. Injury severity score, ISS, was used to quantify the suffered anatomical destruction, and a score of 16 or above, which predicts 10% mortality, was considered as a major injury. Short-term overall outcome of the victims and their disability assessment was done at the time of the hospital discharge. There were 502 road crash victims causing admissions during the study period, out of which 29 had to be excluded due to deficient documentation. Out of the 473 considered cases, 68% of injured persons were in economically productive age group. There were 14 fatalities and 8 cases were declared dead on admission, and 3 succumbed within 1 hour from the admission. Out of them, 12 cases were vulnerable road users. Among survivors, 77 patients suffered major injuries with ISS of more than 16. 12 out of 14, 64 out of 77, and 263 out of 382 cases of fatalities, major injury survivors, and less severe injury survivors were vulnerable users. Within the study cohort, fatalities or survivors following major injuries were statistically higher among the vulnerable road users. They had a significantly higher mean ISS than the other survivors. Out of 459 survivors, 33 out of 39 with permanent disability, 95 out of 110 with temporary disability, and 199 of 310 with no disability were vulnerable road users. Permanent and temporary disabilities were significantly higher among them. 20% of the drivers or riders admitted consumption of alcohol prior to the incident, but records were deficient in many cases to determine whether they were under the influence of alcohol or beyond the legal limits. 1 in 10 were driving without a valid license. 1/5 of motorbike riders or pilot riders who have survived were not wearing a protecting helmet. So, the results of this study raised a few concerns. The demographic description of the study denotes the involvement of economically productive age group among all trauma victims irrespective of the injury severity. Permanent or temporary reduction of the country's workforce would generate an immense negative impact on the socio-economic status of the individual, family, and the country as a whole. The highlight of the study is that more than 70% of the total study population of the road traffic trauma victims suffering injuries of any severity had been vulnerable road users, traveling in an unprotected 2 or 3-wheel motor vehicle or on foot. Within the study cohort, significant majority of the fatal and potentially fatal major injuries were suffered by the vulnerable road users. Among survivors, significant higher proportion of vulnerable road users ended up with residual, temporary or permanent disability. These important facts provide a clear inference for injury, disability or even fatality reduction related to automobile crashes in Sri Lankan setting. It is clear that emphasis has to be made to safeguard the vulnerable road users than the rest, as they form the significant majority of the total number of victims, fatalities, potential fatalities, and disabilities. Additionally, while revealing the common human risk-taking behavior contributed to automobile trauma, this study shows the drunk driving and driving or riding without eligibility as a significant risk factor. These need rectification by strict legislation and public awareness. In Sri Lankan setting, the enhanced safety standards of motor vehicles would be strengthening the safety of already somewhat protected minority of road users traveling in motor cars, while majority of vulnerable road users are still left unprotected. In trauma care literature from developed countries, the emphasis is given to further enhance the safety standards of motor vehicles with already established safety modalities, as their main vehicle load is formed by such motor vehicles. However, in countries like us, where the majority of the vehicle traffic is formed by the pedal or motorbicycles and three-wheelers than motor vehicles, emphasis needs to be given to upgrade the safety issues of such vehicles in order to safeguard the major portion of the automobile trauma victims. Unless it's like we are clamping the iliacs or femorals and the aorta is leaking. Literature on major trauma outcome from the neighboring India have shown that their overall survival outcomes to be substandard when compared to the expected norm state in the West. Severity of injuries suffered and unexpected deaths reported in their cohorts have been significantly higher, leading to poor survival outcomes. Inadequacy of resources, trauma care, including insufficiencies in manpower and infrastructure, have been identified as main reason for the suboptimal care and end results. Similar comparisons of Sri Lankan trauma management outcomes against the reference standards have never been performed. Therefore, I will repeat that we don't know that we don't know. It was evident that majority of the fatalities were pronounced dead on admission or succumbed during the initial trauma registration. This raises the need for primordial prevention strategies to minimize such injuries by uplifting safety standards of human, vehicle-related, and environmental factors during the pre-crash and the crash phases of the automobile trauma, and then by raising the standards of pre-hospital care during post-crash phase. Recently amended legislation on mandatory motor vehicle safety standards would be a good move for primordial prevention of motor vehicle trauma-related deaths in the already protected motor vehicle occupants. However, if the results of this study is extrapolated, it is doubtful whether such regulations would have a massive protective impact on the injury severity of overall Sri Lankan road traffic trauma casualty load, as 2/3 of it is formed by the vulnerable road users. Now I move to the second study, where we have assessed the general surgeons' job satisfaction and their perception on the provided trauma care management in Sri Lanka. Level of job satisfaction is a simple personal perception about one's employment. Positive job satisfaction allows to retain qualified workforce, achieve better productivity, deliver better customer care, and simply result in a well-functioning organization. We know that surgeon's career is demanding one with many physical, psychological, and spiritual challenges, yet it provides great rewards with an opportunity for tremendous personal and professional satisfaction. Studies have demonstrated strong association between the better working conditions for the surgeons and patient satisfaction. Improved service delivery for emergency and elective surgical patients through improved infrastructure and human resources have led to better overall clinical outcomes, patient satisfaction, and surgeons' job satisfaction. In this questionnaire-based cross-sectional study conducted among the general surgeons working in different categories of hospitals throughout Sri Lanka affiliated to the Ministry of Health, firstly, we attempted to assess the general surgeon's perception on adequacy of facilities at the institutions. Here, the individual perception on institutional availability on human resources and infrastructure required for proper functioning of a general surgical unit was compared against with the position paper developed by the Association of General Surgeons in Sri Lanka. Secondly, their perception on the quality of provided surgical care, including trauma-related injury management, was sorted. And then, thirdly, general surgeons' overall job satisfaction was assessed objectively using the Android scale. 78 out of 158 consultant general surgeons responded with a response rate of nearly 50%, with varied distribution between different types of hospitals. Among all participants, 7 and 49 had responded as extremely satisfied or satisfied on their overall job, according to the Andrew scale, while 15 were neutral and 7 were unsatisfied. Stratification of overall satisfaction of general surgeons by the type of hospital showed 93% of teaching hospital general surgeons, 67% of provincial or district general hospital surgeons, and 72% of base hospital general surgeons to be either extremely satisfied or satisfied on their job. Such distribution within the hospital categories was statistically significant. This busy slide summarizes the perception of general surgeons on available facilities on the current working station. Had a positive response rate of 50% or less in overall evaluation. Adequacy of junior surgical and anesthetic staff, availability of specialist anesthetic, radiological and surgical subspecialty support, especially during weekends, and adequacy of nursing and other support staff were the important points that has had less than 50% positive responses. In addition, availability of critical care and advanced radiology units and the instrument were the vital points that had less than 50% of positive responses in the infrastructural requirements. When the quality of emergency trauma care delivered at the current working station was considered, 48 general surgeons were satisfied with the standard of service that they provide. Surgeons at teaching hospitals performed a significant majority of such responders than the surgeons at provincial or district general hospitals or base hospitals. Only 24 participants agreed on the adequacy of the available human resource for management of major trauma at their institution. And again, teaching hospital general surgeons formed a significant majority of positive respondents. 21 respondents, a lower percentage, were satisfied with the available infrastructure facilities for the emergency major trauma care in their institutions. Surgeons at teaching hospitals again formed a significant majority. Only a minority agreed that the availability of surgical subspecialists, orthopedic neurosurgery, cardiothoracic, etc., support for emergency trauma care is adequate. Several general surgeons specifically pointed out the unpleasant experiences on support from the centralized neurosurgical units in the management of cases with severe injury. Vast majority of general surgeons believe that they could provide a better care at their institutions with improved human resources and upgraded infrastructure. Only a third of general surgeons felt assured for a close relative to have a major trauma care at his or her hospital, purely considering the available facilities. There are a few concerns raised from this survey. Ministry of Health, as the main healthcare provider of the citizens of Sri Lanka, has guidance over the hospital classification and expected level of trauma care at each hospital. However, the minimum standards of infrastructure and the human resources defined to each type of hospital is not specified. Moreover, the ministry does not have a periodical island-wide surveillance process involving relevant stakeholders to find out deficiencies in the infrastructure or human resources to improve the services. Thus, in many instances, specialists, including general surgeons, are expected to deliver a standard of care comparable with the world expected norm with limited, insufficient, and inadequate human resources and structural facilities. This issue is worse in peripheries than in the major centers. Studies have shown that such deficiencies in working environment to create a negative impact on one's overall job satisfaction. Furthermore, in the absence of trauma and other special surgically treated disease registries, Sri Lanka does not have a validated island-wide system to retrieve patient outcome data. This has resulted in a void in the national indicators for surgical care in Sri Lanka. Additionally, due to lack of proper patient-reported outcome data for surgical diseases and trauma, there is no quality assurance about the provided surgical care and the end results of the patients. Due to these factors, the space for the general surgeons to be satisfied and appreciated for the care they provide is extremely limited. We don't know what happens, and we don't know whether to smile or to lament. More than half the respondents expressed the inadequacy of human resources. These inadequacies are said to be more during weekends, and such deficiencies were more pronounced in base hospitals and several DGHs than in teaching hospitals. Almost all base hospital surgeons had to manage orthopedic trauma throughout, and many DGH general surgeons had to manage orthopedic trauma during weekends. Many general surgeons at base hospitals were in the opinion that the lack of specialist anesthetic support as a critical factor that compromised trauma care. Many general surgeons, mainly affiliated to base hospitals, raised the concerns over the management of patients with major head injury at their settings. According to them, deficient critical care support has been hindering the ideal initial resuscitation. Further, lack of in-house advanced imaging facilities and transportation inadequacies have been delaying the anatomical diagnosis of head injury. There were a number of general surgeons pointing out the instances where centralized neurosurgical units not accepting their cases with severe head injury. I believe that these events would have happened most probably due to the infrastructural limitations in centralized units. As a result, there have been occasions where general surgeons in base hospitals having to manage patients with severe head injury in their wards. In-house unavailability or the lack of access for the advanced imaging modalities like computed tomography and sometimes even sonography was another important factor pointed out by the general surgeons disturbing trauma care. Lack of a proper trauma system with escalation criteria was identified as an important island-wide problem impeding the high level of trauma care by many general surgeons. This review provides a perspective of the service provider on the quality of specialized surgical trauma care delivered in Sri Lanka. Despite the higher proportion of general surgeons employed in the Ministry of Health being satisfied with their job, they have highlighted many deficiencies hindering the quality of delivered services. It would not be practical to rectify all these said human resources and infrastructural deficiencies in each and every hospital at once. However, the stakeholders need to have a long-term plan to develop the surgical facilities in already functioning hospitals, especially the base hospitals and ill-equipped district generals, while implementing short and intermediate term plans to counteract the main shortages affecting the safety practice of general surgery care. With the view of improving the service delivery to the patients, following main recommendations were suggested by study participants for the consideration of the relevant authorities. The card expansions need to be expedited in order to provide adequate specialist and non-specialist medical cover, increasing the nursing and other supportive staff, etc. with identified endpoints. Advanced radiological facilities and intensive care facilities need to be expanded at least to the level of district general hospitals, with regional base hospitals getting dedicated slots. There is a need to implement a proper trauma care system with dedicated regional level 1 trauma centers Thus, base hospitals could function as level 2 trauma centers. Cluster on call system may be arranged within nearby hospital groups, especially to cover weekends and to provide better work-life balance for the clinicians. As all these resolutions suggested by the study participants, to overcome the service provision barriers are multidimensional. I believe the Ministry of Health need to liaise with all concerned parties to find out a long-lasting solution. There are a few important concerns that I have raised on injury prevention and trauma care in Sri Lanka. We have limited trauma care outcome data. Island-wide trauma care auditing on pre-hospital care, in-hospital care and post-hospital management is yet to be performed in full scale. To understand the gravity of the healthcare and economic burden and to make projections. We don't know where we stand. Trauma leads to highest cause-specific reason for hospital admissions and also the 10th frequent cause for in-hospital mortality in Sri Lanka. As clinicians, ourselves and others are unaware about the costs. Among road crash sufferers, mortalities, critical injuries and disabilities are highest among the vulnerable road users in Sri Lanka, and their safety needs to be secure. High proportion of automobile trauma-related deaths in the country in this study from the Colombo South happened prior to the arrival of the hospital or within early hours of in-hospital resuscitation. This may well be the representation of the island-wide data. This fact highlights the importance of primordial prevention of road crashes before it happens and facilitation of the safety of the vulnerable road users by means of public awareness and legislation as the frontline defense mechanism in this battle. We are unaware about the severity of the burden of industrial injuries in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has a reasonable state-driven free healthcare delivery system. However, there are many shortcomings in emergency surgical and trauma care caused by deficient infrastructure and human resources. General surgeons believe that they could provide a better trauma care by addressing these shortcomings. General surgeons, especially in the peripheral stations in the country, were less satisfied with the delivered trauma care than elective surgical services. In the absence of patient-reported outcomes and registry data, I believe the service provider's point of view as a reasonable assessment of where our trauma care stands. Available handful of cross-sectional studies published in Sri Lanka on patient outcome following trauma has been carried out in single units on short-term basis of about 6 months or less. These studies have never evaluated long-term outcomes, disabilities, and patient perspectives of outcome, including quality of life assessments. Thus, there is an overdue need to commence an island-wide trauma registry to understand the severity of the injuries, morbidities, mortalities, management outcomes, and disabilities. Island-wide health economics of trauma can be studied with that to guide the policy planning. In Sri Lankan state-driven free healthcare service framework, the expenditure spent on each case is never being calculated to have a cumulative value. This may have freed the license for people to be irresponsible and ignorant on the trauma prevention, as at the end of the day, it is not the individual who's paying. The state is one that is accountable, not the individual. Ministry of Health has a national injury surveillance review performed by the medical administrators and epidemiologists to discuss their concerns in trauma care or injury prevention. Surgeons and intensivists discuss their own case cohorts in clinical concerns as clinical forums. There is a subcommittee in the Sri Lankan Medical Association on trauma and accident prevention. However, there is no common forum or a platform for all these professionals to integrate and resolve their concerns. A national trauma registry with regulated access to all these concerned stakeholders of trauma care and injury prevention would be the best option to identify the gravity of trauma as a disease in clinical, socio-economic, and administrative domains. It is not easy for the clinicians to initiate and continue such a project. That means initiation from the epidemiologists and the administrators, well supported by the clinicians. I could recall Dr. Amila Ratnayaka last year raising the same issue during his hospital oration. Measures on trauma care and injury prevention. Injury prevention is not a direct surgical domain. But in a country where surgeons have to fight their skin out to develop their units, struggle to accumulate needed human resources and infrastructure, I feel it's reasonable for us surgeons to raise our voice on the strategies on injury prevention. It is not just because we have to struggle in the patient management with limited resources when a civilian suffer major injuries, because it is a massive socio-economic burden to our poor country. I feel there is an issue in policy planning related to injury prevention in this island. For example, though we are seeing many vulnerable road users suffering severe injuries on day-to-day practice, we have strengthened the safety of the motor vehicle users. We are seeing many industrial injuries like grinder cuts, resulting permanent disability while using the machinery after removal of the safety guard. It is purely because we have failed to enhance the safety practices within legislation and public education. You will agree with me, it is much easier to prevent a complex grinder cut to the wrist than repairing the deranged tendons, nerves and vessels in the middle of a night at an ill-equipped base hospital. With the experience of the things happening around us these days, I am not sure whether the policymakers would listen to the professionals. Still, we have to keep forcing. Only way to save lives or to minimize disability following trauma is by having a proper plan, well-functioning trauma care structure. Development of an escalating flow within a streamlined trauma system is considered as the best modality to deal with the overall post-trauma patient care. We are far away from reaching such global standards. Majority of the general surgeons, especially ones in peripheral centers scattered around the island, felt the inadequacy of quality of provided trauma care attributed to the lack of infrastructure and human resources. General surgeons have raised the concerns about both administrative and clinical hardship encountered in managing complex cases with complex head injuries, complex orthopedic injuries, polytrauma, etc., and major burns due to lack of specialized care in-house and many times within the vicinity. Knowing that such expansions of services of 5 specialties to the peripheries is never emerging at the horizon, general surgeons have raised the need to have 24/7 level 1 trauma care centers, at least within the main regions, to improve overall trauma care. Prioritization of the selection of these centers has to be performed on the case numbers treated according to the clinical audits. I was recently serving as a general surgeon as a military level 2 hospital operated by the United Nations in a conflict-hit Central African country with first-hand experiences on escalation of trauma care. The institution received surgical emergencies from affiliated small hospitals, field and community, and functioned to resuscitate and treat emergencies in order to immediately escalate the care to the level 1 trauma center when needed. United Nations had provided clear protocols for escalation of trauma care beyond the facilities and capabilities of an isolated general surgeon. Similar policy of trauma care escalation may be easily improvised in Sri Lanka. In addition, many were in the opinion that having single-man stations for general surgeons as a disruption to the continuous patient care in both trauma and non-trauma surgical services. Thus, the development of a regional cluster system with rotational weekend on-call system for surgeons may be a potential option to maintain uninterrupted emergency surgical care, including trauma. When it comes to the human resource management issues, in the survey performed among the general surgeons, reasonable number of surgeons have stated on the overall dissatisfaction about their own employment position, and vast majority of them were base hospital surgeons. Foremost reason, as they have mentioned, was the inability to provide satisfactory standard of care to the patients at the institution due to lack of infrastructure and human resources. Vast majority of general surgeons from base hospitals, irrespective of their level of job satisfaction, have raised these concerns. These concerns were not only negatively affecting trauma care but also the elective emergency non-trauma surgical services. General surgeons were in the view that expansion of general surgical service to many nominal base hospitals which lack basic requirements, equipment, standards stipulated by AGSSL during the last 2 decades without a proper plan as the main reason for this crisis. Poor administration and authoritative political influences would have resulted in this poor decision making. Mushrooming nominal ill-equipped base hospitals need to be stopped by the ministry in order to rectify this crisis while developing the standards of the already opened up stations. The important point of the role of the professional organization in trauma care and injury prevention. It is my view that almost all concerns raised related to the injury prevention and trauma care in Sri Lanka have been resulted from improper policy planning and decision making. Possible reasons may include lack of active involvement of the professional organizations into such decision making process or the resistance of the policymakers to adhere to the professional opinion. Sri Lanka College of Surgeons as the main professional and academic body of the surgeons, which maintain many associations and regional chapters under its umbrella cover. It remains as the highest professional focal point for Sri Lankan surgeons. Thus, Sri Lanka College of Surgeons, specialty associations need to function at the highest advisory capacity to guide the other stakeholders on decision making and policy planning. In collaboration with professional organizations or epidemiologists, the college can implement the need for the trauma registry. We need to work in alliance with the ministry on the expansion of surgical services and trauma centers in Sri Lanka with time-bound endpoints. College need to advise on the infrastructure development and human resources upgrading pertaining to the delivery of surgical services. Such professional involvement would potentially eliminate unscientific and biased policy planning and decision making by the other stakeholders. Injuries and trauma have been a continuous and ongoing epidemic in Sri Lanka, killing and disabling many citizens and utilizing massive sum of country's overall budget over many years. It is up to the professionals, including the surgeons, to advise the policymakers to flatten the curve from trauma victims to fatalities and disabilities by adequate injury prevention and uplifting trauma care. I have learned that Dr. Ranjit Lawala, during the Bartholomeusz Oration last year, discussing about the need for change in trauma management culture during major trauma by early intubation, early use of uncross-matched blood, and by using massive transfusion protocol. These subtle changes are the ones that would lead to paradigm shifts in management outcomes. I have heard Dr. Amir Ratnayake during his Spittal Oration last year suggesting to grow together, to grow stronger in trauma care management to have better results. In this complex socio-political background, where people are focusing on COVID-19 management with non-scientific illusional options, I think we as surgical professionals have to struggle a lot to find a way out from this complex problem. Therefore, I will end my speech by saying, let us fight and struggle together and struggle stronger to have better trauma care and injury prevention in Sri Lanka. I know that such struggle in view of the betterment of the patient care is not easy. When you are alone as a general surgeon in a peripheral-based hospital situated in 4-acre land, the professional life is not easy. Still, this small beautiful island offers you a lot. There is a plenty of natural beauties, heritage, and wildlife to ease your stresses out. So, let us struggle together to achieve better results for most. This presentation is an important landmark in my surgical career. And now it's my duty, firstly, to acknowledge everyone who made my surgical life, and secondly, this oration a reality. Starting from the very beginning, I have to highlight my parents for guiding me here. I'm sure Amma is the happiest person in this gathering. Although he is not here to witness my postgraduate achievements, I'm sure that my late Tata's blessings are always with me. It's my primary school, Asoka Vidyalaya, that laid the solid foundation to my education. Then it's Royal College, Colombo, that molded my character. That is a sacred place where we learned our books and men and learned to play the game. Faculty of Medical Sciences of Sri Chaitanya University, at its infancy, initiated the pathway for my surgical career. I would gratefully mention all my respected teachers from all these institutions at this occasion. It's because of you that I am here today. Dr. Sulangia Savardana, former Dean and Chair in Anatomy, directed me very well during my pre-intern period. Professor S.T. Jayaratna and Professor Mohan De Silva and all the consultants at the University Medical and Surgical Units at Colombo South guided my early medical life during my internship. Dr. Nandan Dasanayaka helped me a lot to be successful at the surgery postgraduate selection. I do appreciate your guidance. It is because of many surgical teachers and trainers that I matured as a confident general surgeon. Professors Mohan De Silva, Alok Patirana, Deepak Veerasekara and Srinath Chandrasekara at Kalambusaw crafted my early surgical training. Professors Bhavanta Gamage and Tejan Vijayaratne, during their early days as specialists, treated me very well as one of their junior university colleagues when I was a registrar. Doctors Mahanam Gunasekara, Gamini Puncheva, Anand Lamahyoge, and Professor Neville Pereira constructed my career during the subsequent training period. Dr. Ajit De Silva and Dr. Lalit Pereira polished up this young general surgeon during his senior registrar period. Mr. Ajanta Chalunga and Mr. Chaminda Selleva and other surgical specialists at Russell Soul Hospital that week added a different dimension to my surgical career during the overseas training period. Well-respected gentlemen, I owe you a lot. Dr. Sela Gunawardana, the current Director General of Health Services, the Minister of Health, then the Director at Kalambusaw, and the entire staff of the Accident Service Unit and the Emergency Theatre at the Kalambusaw Teaching Hospital was immensely helpful to complete these two trauma audits. Thank you all. The two studies incorporated into this oration were a reality just because of two teams working parallel with me. Dr. Chamila Lakma, a senior registrar in general surgery, and Dr. Sumudavanti Hevage, a senior registrar in community medicine, were the two live wires. I do appreciate your efforts. Irrespective of one's successes and failures in a professional career, it is the family that stays with you in thick and thin moments of life. Nivanti tolerated me as a surgical trainee, even when I left her for an emergency laparotomy a couple of hours after a cesarean section. And she still does tolerate this general surgeon. Padami and Nilupuli, like their mother, are still accepting this every other weekend father who was spending most of his surgical life either in Mana, Noel, or in South Sudan. Three of you mean a lot to me. Ladies and gentlemen, lastly, all of you who have gathered here and all of you who have joining online are the ones who made this presentation counted. It is all of you who have made this moment a success. Without you, all these efforts would have been null and void. Thank you very much. I would now wind up my speech expressing gratitude to all who have helped me in my short surgical life and during this oration. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
This would be my last address as a secretary to the college and as the second plastic surgeon to have the honor to serve as the secretary. During the year, I believe the college crossed an important milestone. We showcased that the surgeons evolve, adapt to the situation with speed. This is the pandemic. It resonates with the idea behind holding orations, which underpins the paradigm shift for betterment of current practice. With this oration, we cherish the life of a surgeon, Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz, who is remembered for his steadfast family value of giving. His wife's name, Nora, will be with us for many generations. These names will linger in our memories as long as there are surgeons with gratitude. Deeds of surgeons, long lost in sands of time, still speaks of the under universal truth of how giving what you cherish to others keeps your name fresh in the memory amongst generations into the future. I would like to start this speech by thanking our honorary fellows, Dr. Nisanka Jayawardena and Dr. B.J. Ratnasena. This night confirms what you have given to the college will never be in vain. Thank you for being an inspiration to the present and future generations of surgeons who will walk through that doors in years to come. To our latest addition of college fellows, dear all, you have chosen to be with our beloved college for a decade or more. The college is proud of your contribution as surgeons to our country. I am sure all our fellows would have reflected upon their journey up to the stage when they received this honor. In this challenging year, all of you have responded exemplary by giving all you can give and yet some more. I thank you for your passion in walking that extra mile with us. Dear Bingumal, thank you for believing in the college to be the platform to share your valuable research findings. As scientists, we know how difficult it is for us to have free time to engage in real research with profound implications. It was wonderful to see your valiant effort woo the younger generation to take up serious and applicable research. A quick word about the office staff, who were the stepping stones of our collective success. Mr. Dayananda, let me thank you for the last time on the podium as the secretary, for the delicate work that you do. Amali, for the effort you put on organizing this massive non-technical work that goes with the fellowships. Dr. Chatu, for her new talent in technical skills. And Dr. Taraka for the program book that is in your hand. Not forgetting Nimal for his love for the college. I take this as an opportunity to thank all those who supported us physically and emotionally throughout this year that was stolen from our lives. Last but not least, let me thank all of you for turning up here today. You are the core of the college. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. During the year, I believe the college crossed an important milestone. We showcased that the surgeons evolve, adapt to the situation with speed. This is the pandemic. It resonates with the idea behind holding orations, which underpins the paradigm shift for betterment of current practice. With this oration, we cherish the life of a surgeon, Dr. Noel Bartholomeusz, who is remembered for his steadfast family value of giving. His wife's name, Nora, will be with us for many generations. These names will linger in our memories as long as there are surgeons with gratitude. Deeds of surgeons, long lost in sands of time, still speaks of the under universal truth of how giving what you cherish to others keeps your name fresh in the memory amongst generations into the future. I would like to start this speech by thanking our honorary fellows, Dr. Nisanka Jayawardena and Dr. B.J. Rathasena. This night confirms what you have given to the college will never be in vain. Thank you for being an inspiration to the present and future generations of surgeons who will walk through that doors in years to come. To our latest addition of college fellows, dear all, you have chosen to be with our beloved college for a decade or more. The college is proud of your contribution as surgeons to our country. I am sure all our fellows would have reflected upon their journey up to the stage when they received this honor. In this challenging year, all of you have responded exemplary by giving all you can give and yet some more. I thank you for your passion in walking that extra mile with us. Dear Bingumal, thank you for believing in the college to be the platform to share your valuable research findings. As scientists, we know how difficult it is for us to have free time to engage in real research with profound implications. It was wonderful to see your valiant effort woo the younger generation to take up serious and applicable research. A quick word about the office staff, who were the stepping stones of our collective success. Mr. Dayananda, let me thank you for the last time on the podium as the secretary, for the delicate work that you do. Amali, for the effort you put on organizing this massive non-technical work that goes with the fellowships. Dr. Chatu, for her new talent in technical skills. and Dr. Tharaka for the program book that is in your hand. Not forgetting Nimal for his love for the college. I take this as an opportunity to thank all those who supported us physically and emotionally throughout this year that was stolen from our lives. Last but not least, let me thank all of you for turning up here today. You are the core of the college. Ladies and gentlemen,